Our speaker today is Karen McGraw. She is a member of our chapter. She became a Texas Master Naturalist back in 2015. However, just a quick little bit of background on her. In 1981, Karen earned a Doctor of Education from Texas Tech University in curriculum and instruction and cognitive and educational psychology. She then went on for about a 30-year career in the corporate world. And during that time, she basically worked on as a consultant improving human performance. And I won't get into the details. But then jumping back to her becoming a Texas Master Naturalist. That's one of the many volunteer things she does. She's also a member of, she's a certified water specialist. She does native plants, but her passion is something called IDA, which is the International Dark Sky Association, which she's an advocate. And as you can see from the title of her presentation, she's very much into protecting dark skies for humans and wildlife.
Thank you, David. Can you turn me down a little bit? Yeah. Thank you for that lovely introduction. And thank you so much, Mike, for handling the tech here. This is all quite intense. All right. Yes, as David said, I became really passionate about dark skies several years ago and have been doing a lot of public outreach since then. So it is really my joy to be able to talk to you today about protecting dark skies, not just for us, but for wildlife. I'll be sharing with you some of the most recent research, but it's still happening even as we speak today. So it's something that we have to keep in front of. But in this presentation, my goal is to tell you about light pollution. It is actually the last remaining acceptable form of pollution. And I want you to see what it can do to us and to wildlife. But the good news is that I'm not going to leave you depressed, because it is also one of the easiest forms of pollution to alleviate if we work together. Okay. There we go. All right. So let's just start here. Remember what this is like. Remember the last time you sat under the stars. What did it do to your brain, to your breathing, and to your sense of well-being? Can you put yourself in that place? Humans have shared stories about and under the night skies for forever, really. And it's shown up in our literature, our science, and our art. Can anybody think of a song that talks about the stars at night? Anybody want to sing it? No? Well, I sure won't. So the stars have influenced many things in our culture. And wouldn't it be a shame to lose that? Because we're actually close to doing so. What if all of the conservation work we've all done over the last 30 years has only told half the story, the daytime story? The ugly fact is that true dark skies are disappearing. The more scientists study the effects of artificial light at night, the more they realize we have underestimated its impact on humans and wildlife. According to a 2016 book, The World Atlas of Light Pollution, and this was in 2016, so keep that in mind, over 80% of the population lives in areas that can no longer experience a true natural light. And in the United States and Europe, that number is even higher. We think that's really important because the artificial light at night phenomenon is growing at twice the population rate globally. So it's getting worse, and it's getting worse faster. So all this comes with a real dark side that we call light pollution. Here we have just a little image from International Dark Sky Association of what light pollution looks like. You know what water pollution looks like, and you know about air pollution. Light pollution, we may not be as comfortable talking about, but it's really just the inappropriate or excessive use of light where it might not even be needed. And it can have very detrimental effects for wildlife. So some of the things that you're seeing there, we have glare right beneath the street light. And you see that it goes down and lights this area to be lit. All right. But what happens around that? We have some of it escaping and going up into the sky where it's reflecting off of clouds and being reflected back down to Earth. In addition, we have something going on here called light trespass, where the light is going beyond its intended area and lighting other property, sometimes even in people's windows. So what are some of the places we get light pollution from? Think about that, and let's talk about that as a group. What's causing it? Shopping center lights. Where else? Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. Oh gosh, that's a big one, isn't it? The stadium lighting, that property security. Absolutely. Anybody else? Highway intersections, high-rise buildings, street lights. Oh, yes. Right. In fact, I have a friend in my community that I've nicknamed her house the lighthouse, because not only does she have the outdoor lights, but she has the up lights on the house, and the trees are lit too. So light pollution comes from a lot of different areas, and it's not like lighting is bad. It's just that we're using it excessively and in ways that we might not really need to. Well, yes. Ooh, the simple answer is yes, because they tend to be brighter, but we'll look at that a little bit more later as we do our little demo here. You can see it for yourself. It really depends on how negatively it affects what. So we react a little bit differently than some of the insects. So where is light pollution? Well, here is an image from a really cool thing called the NASA Blue Marble Navigator. It's a snapshot of the US at night, and you can very easily see a bird's eye view of where the light really is in the United States. So take a minute and scan this, and then what are your reactions to it? What are you seeing? What conclusions can you form? Yeah, what's with that? Well, McDonald Observatory is having the same problem. They're in a dark sky area in West Texas, but the oil fields with the lights at night on the oil field is a real problem. And you're going to see this on that too. What about where we are? Yes. Good. That's a great conclusion. As we get more people together, we have more buildings, more homes, more highways, more light. What other conclusions can you draw from this? We are, aren't we? Yes, much less. Yes. Yes. Yeah, a lot of the big parks are over there. Yeah. Yeah. All right, good. I want to point one other thing out to you, is where is the migration area for birds? Are you seeing a pattern? Yeah, more on that later. So let's look now at some of the elements of life that are affected by light pollution. And we'll start with us. you know, we evolved to these natural rhythms of light and dark, day and night. Our bodies are made to function this way. But today it is so easy to spend time in the glow of these electronics at night, from our TVs, from our cell phones, the lights in our house, even with the advent of more LEDs in our home. Do any of you have trouble sleeping at night? I'm afraid my name was on that list as well. Well, one of the causes, as we're finding as more medical doctors are doing research in this area, is blue light. Blue light is a color in the visible light spectrum, and our eye can take it in and unfortunately cannot block that. And so it can go all the way back to our retina. And blue light can be very harmful to us because it interrupts the production of melatonin. You know what melatonin does? Yeah. It actually tells our bodies, get ready for sleep. Have a restful evening. And so exposure to blue light at night is harmful. And unfortunately, most of the LEDs we're using in our home and also outdoors contribute to that, contribute a lot of blue light. In fact, we're going to test that out right now using these cool yellow diffraction glasses that should be at your table. And y'all were out at break, so if we didn't get enough at your table, would you please sort of share with each other and pass them around? All right, so here's what I want you to do first. David, can you cut the lights? Where are you? Oh, there he is. He beat me to it. All right. Take out your cell phone. Now, first of all, do you realize how unusual that is? A speaker asking you to look at your cell phone. So pull out your cell phone and pull up a screen that has a lot of white light, like your contacts or maybe your email. And look through your diffraction glasses at your email. Right. What do you see? So these glasses break down light into these different spectrums. And I want you to notice how much blue light you're seeing when you look at your cell phone. Now, yes, you can turn on the dark mode for your cell phone and reduce some of that blue light, but some of it still goes through. All right, now we're going to try it with an LED light. Now, first of all, there's nothing against this other than it's kind of ugly. But if this light fixture was hung properly, it would be fine. But pardon me for just a moment, I'm going to flip it up because I want you to see the visible blue in this light. This is a typical LED. All right. Somebody needs to get a picture of all you guys with your glasses on. You're looking really cool. Oh, good. Good. All right. Now, if you'll just give me a minute, I'm going to change this to a different kind of bulb, hopefully without breaking it.
Doing that, I forgot to say something. These glasses, collect them, so
Nibble on them. Okay. Okay. It's so dark, I can't find a plug. No, I got it. I got it. Okay. All right. Try this yellow bug light. Do you still see the blue light? Yes. But is it less? Yes. Than the LED? Absolutely. All right. And now, if I could do this one more time, I'll show you this light. And I have a reason for showing you a red light. I'm not suggesting that you're going to put this on your front porch. Okay. Uh-oh. Can you see any blue light? No, just a tiny bit. Yeah. Have I destroyed my mic? Oh, it came off my pants. I'll just hold it. All right. So you can turn those back on now. Thank you. So the blue light that you saw disrupts your circadian rhythm and causes problems sleeping. The red light I showed you simply because today technology gives you the opportunity to change your lighting in your home. Over here on the table, I have a couple of boxes of examples. These are lights that you can put in your lamp during the day. They can be the white LED light. At night, you can set an Amazon or a Google routine, which I have in my house. I tell Amazon, get ready for bed about an hour before bedtime, and the lamps in my house turn to red. You can still see, you can still walk around, but you're not stopping your melatonin. So check those out if you happen to be a techie. It's pretty cool, except for when visitors are at your house and they're like, whoa, what just happened? All right. So that rich blue light that you saw suppresses the production of melatonin. And melatonin does a lot of things for us, actually, but we know it mainly because it protects our sleep. It also helps our immune system work better. Research has shown that melatonin production starts going down within 1 to 2 minutes of being exposed to blue light at night or bright light at night. And according to a 2012 study from the University of California, less than 15 minutes of exposure to any bright light at night can completely stop melatonin production. So that may be why we're going in there and popping melatonin instead, because we've stopped our natural production. Some studies are even showing a link between melatonin production being suppressed and diabetes, heart disease, and obesity. Now, as an old researcher, correlation is not causation, right? But we're seeing this link very strongly. And so it's something that Harvard is really working on this research. So is University of Austin at San Antonio. Because wouldn't this be something if part of the reason that we're having continued medical problems has to do with light at night? Oh my. So even dim light can interfere with it, as much as a nightlight in your home. I brought for you a little box over here of an example nightlight that I have in my home. I took out all the ones with the white bulbs and put in these. I got them on Amazon. They're cheap. And at night, it looks like a movie theater. You can wander through the house without stubbing your toe or falling, but you're not interrupting your melatonin production in case, like me, you might be a nighttime wanderer. So we've talked about melatonin. Melatonin is a precursor to serotonin. Does anyone know what serotonin does? Anybody want to venture a guess? I'm not a medical doctor, but yeah. Yes? It makes you feel good. It boosts your mood. It boosts your attention. Not having enough has been linked to depression as well as some other medical conditions. So let's make sure we try to block out this bright light at night for at least 1 to 2 hours before bedtime. So enough about us. Let's talk about the wildlife. Artificial light at night affects wildlife in many ways. We'll look at lots of examples here, but for a lot of diurnal species, the species that are active during the day, when night comes, they find a perch, they rest in the case of these birds. Dr. Travis Longcore at UCLA has done a lot of research with birds and light at night. And what he's found is that birds actually decrease their metabolism and their respiration rates at night. And these numbers are related to how much they reduce those rates. So we've got the doves and the pigeons reduce their rate about 20%. We've got the sparrows about 50%, the titmice about 68%. And look at our little hummer down here, 85% at night. All of this is triggered by natural darkness. And when they compared two groups of birds, one in a lit area and one in an unlit area, the birds in the lit area stayed active. They did not go into this restful state. What we don't know yet is what is the long-term effect of that. And so research continues in that area. We all know about the problem with birds and navigations, and this slide makes me sad. This slide is from a group called FLAP, excuse me, the Fatal Light Awareness Program, and they're doing a lot to try to stop bird collisions. So because a lot of birds migrate at night, they have a sensory system that equips them to do that, but artificial light at night disrupts that sensory system and causes them to be attracted to the light and to have collisions with buildings, either during night or the next day in case they've hung around. So we can dramatically reduce the effects of light pollution on birds simply by turning off unnecessary lights at night. I want to show you a video now from Lights Out Texas and Texan by Nature. They've done a great job of trying to get the word out about the Lights Out program and how important it is for birds, especially during spring and fall migration. So let's see, computer God's willing, this is going to work.
All the trend data show we're going in the wrong direction with songbirds, with forest birds, with prairie birds.
Bird losses are at an incredible high right now. In the last 50 years, we've lost about 3 billion birds from North America only.
This is a bird that has struck glass.
Every year, hundreds of millions of birds are estimated to die in building collisions. And one of the factors involved in building collisions is light pollution. About 80% of North American migratory birds make their journey at night. So by impacting light pollution, reducing the amount of it, we can do our part to help reduce building collisions overall and protect these birds.
Oh, man.
They face two problems related to light pollution. The first is a very direct one, where they're attracted and disoriented by light and may collide with structures like buildings or communications towers or even people's residences. On the other is that because light is so attractive and disorients birds that are moving at night, it brings them in close proximity to areas where they may experience these kinds of hazards the following day.
Lights Out Texas is a win-win for everyone for conservation and business. Not only does turning out lights at night benefit migratory birds and other wildlife species, but it's also beneficial from a business operations standpoint in saving energy and money.
We know Texas is incredibly important for birds. We're talking about 1 to 2 billion birds migrating in the U.S. every year passes through Texas, just enormous numbers of birds. A very simple concept of turning out light at night could have tremendous impact in the positive for safeguarding birds as they're passing.
You know, what's the worst that could happen? We save some energy, we see some stars, that's great. And the big benefit is we can help understand this particular collision problem and come up with solutions together.
The Lights Out Texas project now involves dozens of organizations supporting across the state. We have Houston, Dallas, Fort Worth, Galveston, Cedar Hill, Austin, Dripping Springs, all having made some sort of proclamation or resolution or partnership with the Downtown Alliance to get lights off. That's something that I'm very proud of.
Since the fall of 2020, we've seen some incredible response, and we've seen that interest swell. If you want to know, well, what can I do? Come talk to us. We can tell you. We can tell you when birds are migrating. We can tell you how many. We can even tell you a number of birds that are passing on a given night and what we're forecasting will come. The action is very simple. Turn out your lights tonight. These things all add up to a great potential to save birds.
Thank you. All right, so that's a very interesting program, isn't it? In Austin, where I came from the Hayes County chapter. There was a collective that came together, and this year for the first time had a group of organized little cities, towns, political organizations like Wimberley Valley, governments, all came together to support the Lights Out program. And it was a great success. Texan by nature, and Audubon, Texas also did a great job of helping these groups really make a difference during migration. So maybe that's something that we want to look at. What can we do? Because there's a lot we can do that's not really that hard. So let's move on from birds, although I could stay there all day. But artificial light at night also disrupts turtle navigation, sea turtle navigation. You may have heard about the plights that sea turtles are facing because it's just as disoriented for them as it is for the birds. This is one of the most well-studied incidents of negative effects of artificial light at night. Sea turtle hatchlings are instinctively look for the brightest place to go because it used to be the moon reflecting off of the ocean was where they needed to be. But today, with parking lots and beach homes that leave lights on at night, they get confused. And if you can look in that upper right photo, you'll see how much turning around and re-navigating this little guy had to do to find his way to the water. The longer it takes them to find their way to the water, they're exposed to dehydration, predation, and just really exhaustion too. So it's a big deal. Hatchling losses in Florida alone is hundreds of thousands of sea turtle hatchlings a year. That number doesn't even compute for me. Okay. You want to click me? Right. All right. So glare from artificial light at night also affects amphibians, and especially toads and frogs, which can detect light levels 100 times dimmer than we can. So as part of their breeding ritual, they like to croak and croak back to each other. And of course, if you turn your light on, it disrupts that process and they stop. If you've ever had frogs in your yard and turned your light on, you can see they get really quiet all of a sudden. So the longer it is before we turn our lights off, the worse this is. So their reproduction time is minimized and the time that they're spending communicating with each other is minimized. It actually takes about 3 hours after your lights are turned off for this process to naturally begin again. So if you love frogs and toads, think about these guys. Artificial light at night also interferes and alters predator-prey relationships. Here we have an example photo. I don't know how they got this. I think it's a great photo. But a variety of nocturnal mammals are active at night because they don't want to be seen. They don't want the predators to find them. And in fact, research shows that they do less activity when the moon is bright at night because they seem to sense that that's going to make them more of a target for predators. Well, that means they might end up not eating quite as much during these moonlit nights. Well, what if more nights look moonlit? What if bright lights at night, because our home lights are on or our floodlights are on, is creating the same effect for them? What we know is they just spend less time out And if they do venture out, they make themselves targets for predators who learn very quickly, by the way, what light can do for them. So in the short term, it looks like the predators win. But we haven't done research on this long enough to know what long-term effects will be. Well, this is what I wanted to show you, that some species actually benefit from artificial light at night. Although I'm not sure urban crows need much help, but they seem to be doing just fine. So a study of urban crow roost showed that they gather now in lit areas. And there are many different theories. Dr. Longcore at UCLA was talking about some research here. And what they think is that they're clustering there because the crows that are on guard, so to speak, have a better shot at seeing their predators or potential predators if they're all clustered together in the light. But again, what is this going to do for them long term? Impact on insects is phenomenal. Let me just give you a minute and let you read that for yourselves. It's sobering, isn't it? Now, what they're not saying that artificial light at night is the cause of an insect apocalypse. They're saying that it's like death by 1,000 cuts. It's just one more thing that's making it harder on insects. So this is a fairly recent study. And what they did was look at, they did a meta-analysis of 229 studies that looked at artificial light in insects. And the conclusion was that artificial light at night contributes to the decline of insects because of insect movement, foraging, reproduction, and predation. It also affects food sources and life cycles. So if flowering is controlled primarily by photoperiodism. Flowers seem to know when it's the right season to bloom based on light, and when, if they're night blooming, when they should bloom. And so what's happening here is that night blooming plants have decreased flowering because they're sensing that there's still light in their environment. So what happens if these plants flower less? Well, that has a ripple effect, doesn't it, to the insects, the pollinators that rely on them for food sources. There's a related research that talked about moths in particular are having a tough time. And they compared moths in lit areas and moths in unlit areas, and the ones in the lit areas actually gathered less pollen than the ones in the darker areas. So there's a lot going on here that still needs research for us to completely understand it. So if you are a student, if you're looking at something to study, there are many opportunities here. How many of you enjoyed watching fireflies when you were a kid? I still think it's pretty magical, don't you? I mean, even though now we know the technical terms bioluminescence and all of that, it's still a magical experience. There are a couple of studies, one I didn't put on this slide, but I can certainly tell you about because it just came out. North America has over 120 species of fireflies, even though we know they're really beetles. But they mate through this courtship process. It's like, I'm blinking at you, and they're like, aha, I like that, I'm going to blink at you back. So what happens when they're exposed to artificial light at night? Well, the first research, the one that's shown here in 2019, showed that a bright light at night interrupted their communication process and thus their courtship and reproduction. But a new study just came out, 2021, went even further, and it looked at the effects of all colors of light. And all colors of light affected this communication process. And so we still don't really know. In Europe, they're trying to come up with standards for artificial light at night. And they backed off when this new study showed that even yellow bug lights cause a disruption in communication. So again, much is going on here. We're just continuing to try to understand it. And finally, this is a very common sight. This moth is attracted to the light and stuck in the light, so to speak. So what's happening while they're stuck in the light? What else is going on? What aren't they doing? They're not pollinating. What? They're not mating. They're not finding a cozy little spot. In fact, they're just stuck here. And when they're stuck here, they're much more prone to predation. In fact, a third of the bugs that are around a light at night won't make it to morning, either because of predation or exhaustion. So that just boggles my mind that a simple bulb can draw that many and actually cause that many deaths. Well, I hope in this little section, I haven't depressed you too much. I know it can seem a little depressing, but there are things we can do. And after we look at artificial light at night challenges, we'll look at some solutions to both of these problems. So as harmful as artificial light at night is to humans and wildlife, we want light. We need light, primarily for safety and security. We don't want to fall down the steps. We don't want people coming to our home to have problems finding the door and getting in. But just having more artificial light at night isn't necessarily the answer. And so we're going to look at these challenges: glare, which is a big one, safety and security, light trespass, and wasted energy. Do you feel safe? Look who is there. We could not see him because of the way our eye reacts to the glare. It focuses our eye, it causes our eye to react to the light, and consequently, we're not seeing what's behind it. But how many people in your neighborhood have floodlights up all around their house? Yeah. So for a lot of people, my home in Austin, I couldn't believe I got this lucky. My neighbor across the street was a retired murder detective from Chicago. Can you imagine the lights he had around his house? So guess who I invited to the Texas Night Sky Festival? So he could learn that there's still ways to have light and feel secure without doing that. But yeah, this is what happens to us. There was another case in my neighborhood in Austin. It was a new neighborhood, and people were still parking their cars in the driveway because they had stuff in the garage. And what was happening is during the summer, these kids would come and say, "Oh, what can I steal out of that car?" And a lot of people had cameras on their houses, but the thieves were pretty smart. They would drive their cars into the driveway and blind the camera with lights, and then nobody could identify the car or the license plate. So light glare causes us to not be as safe as if we didn't have it. Let's look at this little example. All of our homes have some sort of outdoor fixtures, don't we? So in this case, on the house on the left, you see glare coming from that outdoor fixture, don't you? And notice you really can't see the steps that well. So this was just a little experiment. The homeowner made a homemade shield to put around the floodlight, and it directed the light where it needed to go. You have improved visibility, and you can probably make it up the steps safely. Have you ever really looked at the lights around your house at night? Just go out at night and take a tour. What's on it doesn't need to be on. What's on that's causing glare? Oh, here's one that I hope you haven't experienced directly. I have from my little detective friend, but these two buildings are across the street from each other, and the home on the right has no exterior lights on. Ugh. What would you think about the person who tried to sleep in one of those front bedrooms? Yeah. So this is called light trespass because the glare from another home or building is coming directly onto your property. And right now they're looking at this in terms of what are your property rights to not have light trespass. I know in my neighborhood, which is made up of active retirees versus old people, we have a rule because they know that we're going to put lights up, but the rule from the HOA is they have to be turned off at 10:30 each night. And not everybody, abides, but they get a little notice if they don't. So research actually shows that 75% of artificial light pollution comes from outdoor lighting fixtures and street lights. And then finally, there's the issue of energy. None of us want to waste it anymore. It's gotten progressively more expensive. And lighting that emits too much wasted light is really just wasted money, isn't it? The IDA estimates that 35% of all outdoor lighting is wasted. Now, wasted simply means that it's not focusing where it's intended to focus. This one right here, the light on the left, you're seeing that the light, you can see the light bulb and the light is going all around it as well as up into the sky. The light on the right is focusing or directing the useful light down where you need it to be able to walk. So how do we fix this? It's really pretty easy. We shield it. We change our fixture if we can afford to do that. Or we put in a dimmer bulb that's not at least going to waste as much energy. But are you seeing? It's kind of a win-win, isn't it? We can reduce light pollution and save energy. So let's look at what we can do, because I know this can all sound, pretty, I don't want to be a downer today. And it's so easy. And we can each make an individual difference. How many times do we get the opportunity to do that and feel like something I do can have a ripple effect in a positive way? So you can immediately and easily reduce light pollution in your area. IDA has given us 5 principles for responsible lighting. And these are really easy to follow. I'm going to walk through them with you here in just a minute, but all light should have a clear purpose. In other words, every light should be useful. Is that floodlight that's on your front tree really useful? Does the tree need it to walk? No. So that's the kind of question you need to ask when you're looking at the lights on your property. Is that useful? All lights should be targeted. So you're directing the light down where you need it and where it can do you the most good. Use the lowest light level that you can afford and still meet your need for safety and security. You can buy them all over the map. I'll show you some examples in a moment. So try to get the lowest that you can buy. Controlled. If you want to have a floodlight, I'm going to show you something you can do to help target that floodlight, but put it on a motion sensor so that it's not on all night. And then color. Use warmer color lights wherever possible so that they're the warmer white or trending toward the yellow instead of that bright blue LED that we see so often. So we'll just quickly walk through these. Here's an example of is the light useful? This is a little store around a lake, and you can see they've got a light on their sign. Our camera doesn't pick that up very well, but they also have this funky light on the very top. And when you look at where it's going, it's mainly down on the little roof below it. So, light so that you have safe wayfinding, and light so that you can help perform a certain task. But ask yourself, is that really necessary, or is that light really wasted? It doesn't have a great purpose that I can tell. There is, let's see if I can do this without making it fall off. I have a handout up here of this document you're seeing on the screen, but Mike has also put it on the site. Yes, it's on the website so that you can download it, and I didn't have to kill so many trees. So what you've seen here are on the left, these are the kind of fixtures that you commonly see. And on the right, you're seeing the recommended fixtures. What's alike about the ones on the right? In nearly every case, they're trying to show you that the bulb is in there, but you can't see the lighting source. And that's really the key thing when you're looking at outdoor lighting fixtures. Are you going to be looking right at that bulb as you approach your home? So this is an example of, is your light targeted? These on the right are targeted. Even the little landscape lights. Here's an example of targeted as well. So you can have light that goes out all over the place and waste energy, or you can have a targeted light like the one on the right, where the light is focused on the area that needs to be lit. The circle of light is the same in each case. So use only the amount of lighting that you need. This is low level lighting. This is from where I used to live. This is out in Dripping Springs. Try to pick the lowest level lighting you need to perform a task. Dripping Springs is a dark sky community. It was one of the first certified dark sky communities. So they do a lot of this kind of thing. And light levels are measured in a term called lumens, and that's the brightness of the light. And so what you have here at the donut store, is lower lights that light the path into the donut store. On the right, you have a picture of HEB. Oh God, please bring me an HEB to Denton. So the nice thing that HEB did here is that they put their lights underneath, focusing directly down. So they're not going to glare into the eyes of anybody driving by or pulling up, but you can still accomplish your task of pumping gas. This is an example of, are your lights controlled? Here's a parking lot. We don't know what time it is, but it looks pretty dark. Is anybody needing that parking lot? Is anybody there? Should the lights be on? I don't know. Should we have put them on a motion sensor or a timer or something like that so they're not on all night? Europe is doing a lot in this area. Their research is phenomenal. They're looking at putting some sort of sensors in the pavement so that street lights come off and come on based on when crowds are approaching or cars are approaching. I don't know how that's going to turn out yet, but I'm excited about the fact that they're trying to do this. So what if you have a floodlight that you really want to use? I have the big box over there is an example of a $35 shield that I had my husband put on our floodlight. You notice I did not do it. I had my husband do it because he had to get up on a ladder to attach that thing, and it directs the floodlight down where it needed. You can also put these on motion timers, motion sensors, so that you're not lighting the area that you don't need when you don't need it. And color was the last of the 5 principles. Use warmer color for outdoor lighting whenever you can. Kelvin is just a measure of light temperature, but the reason that we use it is that it relates to light color. So on the right here, you have the really, really bright LEDs. 10,000 LED. Look how blue that looks. And remember what blue light does to us. Yeah. And on the left, you see lower Kelvin lights, 2000 Kelvin, 2500, 2700 is great, up to even 3100, has still a little bit warmer look to it. Look for these kind of lights when you're putting lights in your home or around your home. And manufacturers are making it a little bit easier today for us to do that. Remember when all you used to do is say, honey, go to the store, I need a 60-watt bulb. Well, it's not that easy anymore, but it's on the box. You just have to look for it. So on the box, this is just a sample. There's 2 different formats that are typically used. This is one of them. It'll tell you the light output. In other words, how bright is it? It'll tell you how many watts it uses, how much energy you're using. It'll tell you, the most important part on here to me is the color temperature, the Kelvin temperature, where this falls on the Kelvin scale. So try to follow your guidelines by looking and reading those labels instead of just grabbing the one that you're closest to, and take a minute to really digest the lighting facts. This is an example of what IDA's 5 principles looks like in total. It is also going to be posted on the chapter website for the presentation so that you can download it yourself. I'll try not to get emotional. Protecting dark skies matters. Matters. It matters to you. It matters to wildlife. And it's getting worse. Without our intervention, we're not even aware of some of the things that can happen. So I challenge you to look at your lighting. What can you change? Maybe it's just a bulb. Maybe it's a lighting fixture. Who can you talk to? On my street, in my neighborhood, I'm known as the light lady. So, because I talk to everybody, they will tell me, your lights are so beautiful. I love your lighting. Let me tell you about my lighting. It can seem overwhelming. I look at this research all the time and it's depressing. But you can do something simple to make a difference. And that's what I'm asking you to do. And if you want to go beyond just changing your lighting practices and the way you use artificial light at night, there's a couple of other things you can do. Let's say you've done a good job of updating your lighting so it's more effective. It cuts out light pollution. You can participate in the Be a Star Award program and put a little plaque up that tells your neighbors, I'm committed to this. This means something to me. It's really easy to do. On the IDA Texas website, there is a place where you can download an application. I have an example with me. I don't like to print a lot of copies, but this is up here if you want to see what it's like. You submit it, and with a very small fee that really just pays for the plaque, you can become a night sky and neighborhood friendly home. Businesses, especially around Austin and the Dripping Springs area, are also getting into this program to be a night safe business. Something else you can do, I did not see this on our projects list, but where I came from, we had a light pollution project, and one of the things we could do was research, field research. Globe at Night is a citizen science project. You can do it from the comfort of your own backyard. If you'll log on to globeatnight.org, it will show you different dates for each month. All you do is go out into your backyard, look up into the night sky. How many lights can you see? How dim is it, or how bright are you seeing? Then you match that using your phone to the examples that they show. Oh, my night sky, it looks dim like this one or bright like this one. You record that data. It doesn't take you long to do. And you're contributing to our understanding of where light pollution is and how bad it is. So it's really easy and it's kind of fun. So during my presentation, I hope I have shown you some ways that we can make a difference in managing and reducing light pollution. Here are some additional resources that I wanted to share with you because I can't cover each of them in the depth that I'd love to, but idatexas.org. This is one of my favorite organizations. I'm a member of IDA. And because I'm a member of IDA, I'm automatically a member of IDA Texas. We do events in the state like Texas Night Sky Festival and have booths and tables at events to try to tell people about light pollution. So if you want to take a look at it, I encourage you to do that. darksky.org is the international group, International Dark Sky Association. And then if you are interested in the Lights Out Texas program, I've included a link here so you can find out more information about them. Below that is Birdcast Alert. How many of you already get Birdcast alerts? Awesome. Okay, so if you sign up with Birdcast Alerts during migration period, you'll get an email that tells you, hey, this many birds are going to be coming through your area tonight. And it's a really interesting way to keep tabs on what can I do right now to make it even easier for the birds to get through Texas. If you happen to like astronomy and looking at the stars, this next to the last URL is pretty cool. You go in and put Denton. I just put Denton on the end there, and it tells you what stars are out at night and what time you need to get up in the morning to see them. So it's kind of interesting because, of course, that changes throughout the year. And then finally, I've given you the link for the World Atlas of Light Pollution, which is also on Amazon, of course. So does anybody have any questions? Oh my, let's see. Let's start over here.
Real quick, are you aware of any recent studies that link melatonin supplements to any kind of negative consequences or side effects?
I have talked to a guy who's doing research at UT San Antonio, who takes supplemental melatonin in addition to doing all these dark sky things. Well, there have been a few cases recently of melatonin poisoning where people took too much. And so we used to think that was a perfectly safe over-the-counter medication, but in fact, there are some negative consequences if you take too much.
Tonight, article there, they have broadcast about the effect of kids taking melatonin.
Yes.
I think it's on tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's showing, but
Yeah. Well, this researcher felt like he was seeing so much positives with disease that he was going to take some extra. But he did say, "I'm not advising you to do that." Medically. He said, "This is just a choice I have made. I don't use any supplements. I try to do these other things so that I can go to bed naturally." Yes.
Yeah, I live in a residential community with an HOA, which has a neighborhood watch program that is really encouraging neighbors to turn lights on at night. And I respect them very much, that process, and the people who are passionate about that. Any advice or perhaps resources for me to learn something on how I can contribute what we're learning here towards what?
Yes.
Add that to their conversation.
Yes, thank you. That's the situation many of us find ourselves in. I have some brochures up here that sometimes can get that conversation started. People like me are also more than eager to come in and talk to HOAs, HOA groups by themselves before they have a larger community discussion. Because a lot of times it's just that people don't know. They equate life with security and safety without realizing there's right ways and wrong ways to do it. Yes, thank you. Yes.
The EPA, are they involved too?
Not as much as we'd like them to be.
Anything?
Yeah, most of the good things that are happening by nonprofit groups and universities. Yeah. Yes.
if there are any people in our group that are interested in nice dark sky party, go out at night, maybe in the fall, it's temperature's a little nicer. But to go out, to either one of the state parks or around at my house, out in the country, and we can telescopes,
Good.
bring your grandkids, because the way you get people to want to turn off the lights so they can see the lights is to get the kids excited.
That is absolutely right.
Excited astronomy, and he drives, I can't see any stars tonight, Dad, turn off the lights.
Yes.
Well, I tell you, that'll do it.
That'll do it every time.
State park people have programs, and I said they'd work with us.
Awesome. Yes,
We want to do something.
thank you. Let's do it. Are you really? Yay!
No, we will come out and do it.
Okay.
Ray Roberts. Ray Roberts out the block.
All right. Anybody else? Are we done? Yes. Yes, Sarah.
House has the night, you said you have red night lights in your house,
Uh-huh.
but we have the motion sensor.
Yeah.
So if you walk down the hall, turns on, walk down the stairs, turns on.
Yeah.
And they're not on all the time.
Yeah, that's
It
good.
saves a little money too.
It works too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, I have an off the wall question. I have some friends who are so proud of themselves because they built their whole backyard with these little solar lights.
Oh, yes.
They come on at night and stay on all night long. How much damage does that do?
Well, I mean, what's under the solar light? Insects, frogs, toads. You saw some of the research on that. So it is damaging. I mean, I'm just grateful my community includes that, and the lights must be off. That includes the solar lights. If they're going to have solar lights, at least they should have the ones that, don't let you see the light source. It doesn't do as much damage. But
They're so proud of themselves.
oh, I know. I have some in my neighborhood too. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. Yes. Anybody else? Yes.
I was just gonna say, maybe it would encourage them to use the different thing on the night lights where they only come on if something walks across the path.
Yeah.
Motion
sensors?
Yes,
Yeah.
just put a motion sensor on.
Yeah.
And I do have to say, we thought of an owl house. And we put it up, and for 2 or 3 years, we didn't have an owl at all in the house. So my husband was adamant, we have to have porch lights on all night long. And so I basically said, I've heard that they are more likely to nest if there's not light around. So we've turned off our porch light at night. You can't get to the front door, you could kill yourself. But
maybe you shouldn't be coming at 2 a.m.
So, but when he turned off the lights, within 2 months, we had owls.
It makes a difference. So
How many of us feel guilty now?
no. Sorry, that's not the point.
No, that was a very, very good presentation. Dave, what was the speaker next month?
Sam Peachnick will be speaking on wonderful wasps.
So AT for sure, an hour and a quarter. And chapter half hour.
Years and years ago at Costco.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank y'all for
It's a
coming.
great style.
Yeah.